Imagine you're sitting on a passenger airplane thousands of feet above the ground. You connect to the aircraft's Wi-Fi, just like hundreds of other passengers. But instead of connecting to the airline's real network, your phone connects to a fake one created by someone sitting just a few seats away. Now here's the terrifying question. If someone can interfere with the Wi-Fi network inside an aircraft, can they actually reach the airplane's critical systems? A recent incident involving a Delta flight raised exactly this concern. According to an ACARS message reportedly sent by the crew, passengers were able to disrupt the aircraft's Wi-Fi and broadcast a rogue network called Delta Wi-Fi Fast. But what happened next is much more interesting than the headline itself. Because there is a huge difference between hacking passenger Wi-Fi and hacking an airplane, and understanding that difference reveals just how seriously modern aircraft are designed to protect themselves from cyber threats. Let's start with the incident that triggered all the discussion. A Delta flight carrying passengers from DEFCON 34 in Las Vegas was reportedly affected by a suspected Wi-Fi attack while airborne. According to the crew's ACARS message, passengers were able to interfere with the aircraft's Wi-Fi and broadcast a rogue network using the name Delta Wi-Fi Fast. The basic technique isn't unique to aviation. A malicious device can imitate a legitimate wireless network and make it appear to nearby users as though they're connecting to the real service. If passengers connect to that fake network, an attacker could potentially redirect them to fraudulent login pages designed to steal usernames, passwords, or other sensitive information. That's obviously a serious cybersecurity problem. But here's where social media discussions can become misleading. The existence of a rogue Wi-Fi network does not automatically mean the attacker gained access to the airplane's flight controls, navigation system, autopilot, or other safety-critical equipment. In fact, modern aircraft are specifically designed around the idea that passenger-facing systems should not have unrestricted access to critical aircraft systems. And that's where aviation cybersecurity becomes very different from the average hotel or airport Wi-Fi network. An airplane isn't one giant computer network where everything is connected to everything else. Modern aircraft contain many different electronic systems, and software-based equipment is designed according to different levels of criticality. The source explains design assurance levels, commonly referred to as DAL. At the highest end, DAL-A, these are systems where a failure could have extremely serious consequences. Examples include aircraft displays or autopilot-related systems. At the other end, DAL-E, which represents the lowest software criticality level. Passenger-facing systems, such as in-flight entertainment, or IFE, fall into this lower criticality category. A system such as an onboard Starlink-type connectivity system would also be in this general category, according to the source. Why does this matter? Because a passenger Wi-Fi system isn't supposed to have the same authority or trust as the systems responsible for safely operating the aircraft. A passenger shouldn't be able to connect their phone to Wi-Fi and suddenly gain access to the autopilot. That would be an enormous security failure. And aviation regulations and certification requirements are designed specifically to prevent that kind of architecture. Think of the airplane as having different rooms. You're sitting in one room with your phone and your laptop. The passenger Wi-Fi system is in another. The aircraft's critical avionics are behind several additional layers of protection. The source explains that IFE and Wi-Fi systems must be firewalled and isolated from aircraft systems. In many aircraft designs, these passenger systems essentially receive electrical power from the aircraft but don't have a direct pathway into critical avionics. There are some aircraft where passenger-facing or connected systems can listen to certain aircraft information. For example, they may receive information such as aircraft position, estimated time of destination, altitude, or speed. But there's an extremely important distinction here. Listening is not the same as controlling. The system may receive information from the aircraft without being able to send commands back into the critical systems. It's similar to having a television that can display information from another computer but cannot control that computer. So even if someone manages to compromise the passenger Wi-Fi network, that doesn't automatically give them a pathway into the systems responsible for flying the aircraft. And according to the source, the suspected attack in this case would essentially be comparable to spoofing a network in a hotel. The primary risk would be to passenger information, rather than the safe operation of the aircraft. Now, here's where things become more complicated. Because aircraft aren't becoming less connected, they're becoming more connected. Some aircraft are described as E-enabled aircraft. The source specifically mentions aircraft such as the Embraer E190, Boeing 737 MAX, and Boeing 777. These aircraft can use Wi-Fi or cellular connections to communicate with cloud-based systems. And these connections can be used for things that go far beyond passenger entertainment. For example, connected systems can be involved in downloading loadable aircraft software parts, updating navigation databases, or uploading aircraft health and monitoring information, including faults and aircraft status. That sounds alarming. After all, if an aircraft can communicate with systems on the ground, doesn't that create another potential cyber attack pathway? The answer is, potentially, yes. Connectivity creates additional cybersecurity considerations. But aviation regulators don't simply connect an airplane to the internet and hope for the best. There are specific approval processes, security programs, architecture requirements, and operational restrictions surrounding these systems. And there's another crucial detail. According to the source, these types of aircraft data operations generally can only be performed on the ground, with weight on wheels. That means the aircraft isn't simply accepting arbitrary software changes from the internet while cruising over the Atlantic. The system's capabilities and operating conditions are tightly controlled. So how does an airline actually operate an E-enabled aircraft? The source explains that an airline must obtain Operation Specification D301 approval. This isn't just a simple checkbox. The FAA's Advisory Circular 119-1A describes requirements associated with obtaining this approval. For aircraft with certain special conditions incorporated into their type certificate datasheet, the operator also needs an aircraft network security program. And this is where you start to understand how seriously aviation treats cybersecurity. Take the Boeing 737 as an example. The source references Special Condition 25-550-C, published in the Federal Register in June 2014, concerning protection of airplane electronic systems from unauthorized external access. The basic requirement is straightforward. Aircraft electronic systems must be protected against unauthorized external access. But it goes further. Security threats have to be identified and assessed. Effective protection strategies have to be implemented, and operators have to maintain procedures that ensure continued airworthiness, including after modifications that could affect approved electronic security safeguards. In other words, cybersecurity isn't something engineers think about after an airplane has already been designed. It becomes part of the aircraft's safety and certification process. Here's something most passengers probably never think about. Protecting an airplane from cyber threats isn't only about putting a firewall between Wi-Fi and the cockpit. The cybersecurity program can involve the entire ecosystem surrounding the aircraft. The source explains that the process can cover aircraft systems, ground systems, tooling, procurement, and other parts of the operation. The operator must have the appropriate D301 approval and an approved aircraft network security program. Without that approval, the FAA will not allow the applicable aircraft to operate in revenue service. And according to the source, this can be an extremely long process. The entire process can take approximately 18 to 24 months, resulting in an aircraft network security program manual that can be around 300 pages. Think about that for a moment. A passenger might see a Wi-Fi network called Delta Wi-Fi and think it's just another wireless hotspot. Behind that seemingly simple connection is an aviation cybersecurity environment involving certification, regulations, risk assessment, operational procedures, network architecture, and ongoing oversight. That's why comparing aircraft Wi-Fi to the Wi-Fi at a coffee shop doesn't tell the whole story. Now we can finally answer the question: can someone hack an airplane through passenger Wi-Fi? The answer isn't simply yes or no. If we're talking about compromising a passenger Wi-Fi network, then yes, that type of attack is possible. A rogue network can potentially trick passengers into connecting to it. An attacker could potentially use fraudulent login pages to capture credentials or other sensitive information. That's a legitimate cybersecurity concern, but that is fundamentally different from taking control of the aircraft. The architecture described in the source is specifically designed to isolate passenger-facing systems from safety-critical aircraft systems. A low-criticality passenger system isn't supposed to become a backdoor into the aircraft's most important avionics. And even on more connected E-enabled aircraft, additional requirements and cybersecurity programs exist to evaluate and control the risks. So the scary headline, "Someone hacked an airplane through Wi-Fi," can give people the wrong impression. A more accurate way to describe the situation would be, a suspected rogue Wi-Fi attack targeted a passenger connectivity system, raising cybersecurity concerns. But that does not mean the attacker gained control of the aircraft's flight-critical systems. That's a very different story. The biggest lesson from this incident isn't that airplanes are secretly flying around with completely unsecured Wi-Fi. It's actually the opposite. Modern aircraft are becoming increasingly connected, and that connectivity creates new cybersecurity challenges. But aviation regulations recognize that connectivity can introduce risk. That's why systems are separated according to their functions and criticality, why passenger-facing networks are isolated from critical avionics, and why E-enabled aircraft can require extensive cybersecurity approval and risk management processes. Even when an aircraft system communicates with the outside world, that doesn't mean every computer on the aircraft is suddenly exposed to the internet. And that's one of the most important concepts to understand. Connectivity does not automatically mean control. A passenger may be able to access the internet from 35,000 feet. A connected aircraft may be able to exchange certain data with ground systems. But neither fact means that a passenger with a laptop can simply open an app and take control of the autopilot. The aviation industry has spent decades building layers between passengers, entertainment systems, connectivity systems, avionics, and safety-critical functions. The suspected Delta incident is still important because it demonstrates that passenger connectivity itself can be a target. But the bigger story is how the aircraft's architecture is designed to contain that kind of problem. Because in aviation, cybersecurity isn't just about protecting someone's password. It's ultimately about protecting the aircraft, its passengers, and the continued airworthiness of the airplane. And as aircraft become even more connected in the future, that battle between connectivity and cybersecurity is only going to become more important. So the next time you connect your phone to airplane Wi-Fi, remember, you're connecting to the aircraft's network, but that doesn't mean you're connecting to the systems flying the aircraft. And that separation may be one of the most important cybersecurity barriers in modern aviation. If you found this explanation useful, subscribe to Deep Blue Avionics for more real aviation technology, aircraft systems, and the hidden engineering behind the world's most advanced airplanes. And if you want to see more videos explaining what really happens behind the scenes in aviation, turn on notifications and stay tuned for the next one.